Hey Vusi, how are you?
I'm great, Sean. How's yourself?
I'm good too.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good to
Just
go.
waiting just waiting for our final platform to go live to our audience,
Okay.
and I'll just count you down.
Also, can we can also share the talk here on this button
Hmm.
on the share
Was
button.
anyone?
I'm saying we can also share the talk on this share button. Is that what it's for? You can share
Yeah,
to social media and talk. Okay.
Mm.
yeah. This is if you have if you want to share something on your screen, you can go ahead. Anyway,
Oh,
guys.
that's what I wanted to check. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to check. No, I don't want to share anything. I thought it's a share button for social media to say share to Facebook or share to
Mm.
Twitter.
No, no.
So you've
Right now
corrected. I won't touch it.
right now we're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube, and we're live on the website. So welcome to Africa Film Trinidad and Tobago's talk with Vusi Africa, the director of Letters of Hope. We're also joined today by our moderator Sean Samad of the Black Consciousness Festival. I am technical director Shea Best, and I'll just be behind the scenes making sure everything goes well. But over to you, Sean and Vusi.
Thank you, Shay. Welcome, Vusi, to this discussion today about your film, The Letters of Hope. How are you in South Africa?
I'm doing well, Sean. It's 6 o'clock here in South Africa, and we're in autumn right now. So the weather is getting a bit chilly, but yeah, we're keeping warm and tight. And awesome. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's pretty warm here in Trinidad as well. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I don't expect any less. I've heard great things about the weather in Trinidad.
typically Caribbean. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so Vusi, your film, The Letters of Hope, was really inspiring to watch. So off the bat, the first thing I want to ask you is, what was the inspiration for this film?
I think the journey to Letters of Hope began in the year 2011 when I was appointed to do research for the African National Congress alongside Prof. T. Ibudi in the province of Mpumalanga, and the research was to detail the history of the oldest political movement in Africa that to represent Black people, and we were to gather historic facts. We were to gather stories that were unknown and stories that were known and information that was shared and information that was not shared in the public. So it was research that was meant to capture the entire history of the ANC from 1912, when the ANC began, up until the year 1994, when democracy was executed in South Africa. So I think in that moment, I met a gentleman by the name of Patrick Sibande,
Hmm.
who is the son of Gert Sibande, and in South Africa, Gert Sibande is known as the Lion of the East.
Okay.
And Gert Sibande, who's the father of Patrick Sibande. Gert Sibande had gone through a lot of tribulations within the oppression system of South Africa, and all those things that were happening in Bethal, and that led Patrick Sibande to the movement of the African National Congress, taking over from his father, who had been also fighting the system of oppression. And Kurt, narrated a beautiful story. Patrick Sibande, Kurt's son, narrated a beautiful story, about how letters traveled from exile into the country, and how he was involved as an ANC operative within South Africa to take those letters to the people who are at home, because a lot of people who left to go to exile when South Africa was under apartheid did not inform their family members. They would just leave in secret because it's a covert operation. Family members have to be protected in case the police comes. So it is in that moment that, the story is born in the research of the history of the ANC and my encounter with Patrick Sibande and him narrating some of those events. There were quite a lot of stories. We interviewed about 2,000 people, wow. But in particular, it was that story for me that and that I could afford because it was my first film.
I mean, for your first feature film, it's absolutely stunning. I mean, from the quality of the shots, the lighting, the score. I mean, it's an incredible package of a film. So if it is your first feature film, I look forward to other things that you would do. In that story that you tell about what leads up to you coming to this idea for this film, it reminds me of a place I visited a couple of years ago in New Orleans called the Whitney Plantation, which came about similar to your project because of a writers project, the Federal Writers Project in the 1930s in the U.S., when they sent people out to gather stories of those people who were born into slavery in the U.S., and that just created a lot more information about what slavery was like. So your film really uncovers untold stories and gives a voice to the voiceless. Tell us a little bit about what are some of the angles or the strategies you decided to use in order to give voice to these characters. You have the main character, who's Jeremiah Bozeman, his mother Maria, his father Robert, and then lots of other characters, his friend Linda. But you seem to be able to shine a spotlight on each character and allow us to get some information about their individual stories. Tell us about your strategy to do that.
I think for me, the most important thing that was at play was the family dynamics. Mm-hmm. Because the human condition is always determined, by the background and by the family dynamics of where we come from. We are shaped by the places that raise us, and how we are raised. It's how actually we get shaped. And in particular, my focus, I wanted to, show the dynamics of a father and son relationship, in a time when, it was not so easy for young people, to come into certain decisions. And particularly imagining a young person who wanted to become a policeman in 1976, and that was Jeremiah's dream, and at that time, as a Black South Africa, to want to become a policeman, it's like you are cursing your family, and those who were policemen at that time, were hated as equally as people hated the apartheid system. And for me, I think it was important to shine a spotlight on those dreams, that felt like a mark on the Black skin because of the structures that the apartheid system created. And Jeremiah's journey allows us to go into that space and be able to discover and understand, how young people felt in a time where young Black people did not have many choices, and we are sent to his mother, who is a strong woman, but at the same time so weak, because of the decisions that she has to take, but because she understands what is at stake, she makes sacrifices. And I think, that is a replica of many African women, who've had to make sacrifices, because of certain things that, that have to happen, even though they wish otherwise. Because Jeremiah's mother has the dream that maybe Jeremiah could be a bit safer. But at the same time, she wants Jeremiah to follow his father's instructions because she understands how important it is for those letters, to get across. And I think that brings us to the heart of the film, the constraints between the mother, wanting to be brave to Jeremiah and say, Jeremiah, you can do this. But at the same time, feeling as if she's letting him down because his own father died because of these letters. And I think for me, that's one thing that I wanted, the audience to really understand, the dynamics of dreams and how families come together, in that space, and the dynamic relationship between the mother and the father. And in particular, I think Linda comes so beautifully in the story because she too has lost a father, so she too is looking for answers, and she's impacted, by Jeremiah's decision, and I think it is in Jeremiah discovering that Linda is really, really impacted by what's happening that becomes the ultimate turning point, for him to really say, I am going to take over my father's responsibility. It's because of family love. He does what he does because of family love.
Yes, that comes across really clear in the film and very well executed. As you talked about the mother and the role of African women and the things that they have to endure, one of the scenes in the film that really struck me emotionally was the scene where Tomas comes to inform both Jeremiah and Maria about the death of his father, right? And that scene is so touching in terms of the inclusion of some elements of sound and the quietness of her movements, and Tomas getting up to hug her. In this film in particular, I find your use of sound to be incredible, to be really strategic and really as an integral tool in the communication between yourself and the audience. Was that by coincidence, or was that something that you set out to do?
The process that or the approach rather that I took in ensembling my treatment for this picture was to think about the things that I want to say, even when I'm not saying anything. For me, even the songs that they sing, in particular, and the Holy Spirit must come down, so that Africa can be saved. There's just certain things that I wanted to really echo, and without really putting them into dialogue, and say this is what I want to say. But for me, I felt it easy, to put some of the messages of the film, in the music itself, and even during the scene when Maria discovers that Robert is no more, there's just that need, for that scene to sink us even deeper into the crisis of death, the crisis that death actually brings, and what it takes away, So for me, the music of the film was part of the dialogue, in essence, it was part of the messages that we wanted to say, in the ensemble of the picture. And I think the scorer or the composer, Nebo Mafabatu, he took a very practical approach, in bringing everything together, because everything was made from scratch. The voices, so the process that he underwent, in order to bring the music together, really, marked some of the elements in the film, and I think it does really come across well.
Nice. It really does. I mean, as a viewer of the film, I can tell you that what you set out to achieve in terms of communicating that to audiences was done so well. In previous interviews, you've said that the film Letters of Hope was really to kind of be a voice for justice and equality. As a young person in South Africa today, is that an important imperative for most filmmakers, or is that unique to you, do you think? I know you won the Artistic Bravery Award at the Durban International Film Festival. Tell us a little bit about why you think it is important to in your films, in your work, create a voice for justice and equality. I know it's a heavy question.
I think being a Black person in a place like South Africa, it always makes you question your position in society. Because for a very long time, our stories were told by white people, and they've been telling them the way they want to tell them. And that's their lens, At the same time, at those moments are robbing the authenticness of the Black voice, because in the case of history, you have to understand that you cannot have the oppressor, telling your own story. It becomes a bit conflicting for me, because of the fact that I think the oppressed have the right to tell the stories of the oppressed and speak about their oppression from an authentic point of view. And I think the issue of equality and justice in South Africa still persists. 1994 was a victory on paper, but the conditions of many South Africans remain unchanged. And I think it will be ignorant of myself not to reflect on the voices of the people of where I come from. Right. Because for me, I make stories about the places where I come from. I tell the stories about the people that I come from. And for me, it is important to be honest to those people. And the stories of those people are about breaking free, are about being resilient, are about fighting against a system that declares you illegally. Those stories are about, people coming together, uniting, finding strength within each other. It's stories about survival. It's stories about the harsh realities of my community. And for me, I think that is my purpose within the space of filmmaking. And I think there's so many, so many stories to be told, But I think it is important that voices like myself exist, so that those stories that many people don't seem fit to tell, or others will find not necessary to tell, because maybe they are not on the right side of history, or they do not represent a particular portion of history or a particular view about South Africa. Writers like myself, we exist to fight for those stories. We exist to propel the truth and fight for a narrative that is not popular, in the general society. And I think as long as filmmakers like myself exist, there's always gonna be consciousness, and the call for Black consciousness. Because we, as Black people, you look everywhere in the world, the life of a Black person, is still as equal to the life of a dog. We cannot be ignorant to how society treats Black people. In London, in America, in Australia, in China, Black man is suffering. Wherever Black man goes, he's encountering problems. Yeah. And I think the world is sort of not really willing to really listen to Black people. The struggles of Black people always seem like an historic event, but it is not historic events. We are suffering right now. Black people are struggling. At this particular time we talk, there's Black people who are struggling, So it's important that there is a voice for justice and equality.
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. And your role in telling these stories is essential to us understanding what has happened and what continues to happen today. And so that brings me to, in spite of you understanding the need to tell about struggle and tell about oppression, you have said in your own interviews that you also want to inspire hope and transformation, and you want to highlight or underscore the fact that there are heroes among us that we don't know about. And I think it's the same in all areas of the world where Black people are, here in the Caribbean as well. There's so many heroes, unsung heroes, that we don't know about. In your experience with how the film has interacted with audiences in the world and in your own country, do you see that happening, that it's inspiring hope and transformation?
I think the film is about that burning light, that shining light at that end of a long tunnel. It is about the hope for a better day. And I think what motivated particularly the title, and and us focusing particularly in the era of 1976. It was the fact that at that time in South Africa, the Fees Must Fall movement was very, very rife, and the promises of 1994 actually came with free education. And young Black people, I think, were tired of waiting in South Africa, and there was a time when universities turned into turmoil because young people, were calling for free education, and a huge dissatisfaction politically, with the leadership of South Africa. There was just so much happening within the country, and so much instability and uncertainty, about South Africa itself, and I think this film played a huge role in terms of reminding young Black people about where we come from, and understanding that we couldn't have gotten where we are right now without us coming together, without us actually being brave, But in all that turmoil, we just all need to remember that there is hope, at the end of it all, And I think it is important to echo the message of hope, across the world, because it needs to be heard. There isn't enough messages about hope, and as much as the film was set in 1976, it was addressing the current South Africa, about the uncertainties of the current South Africa, and because it's in a time where we find ourselves politically not understanding where South Africa is going. We're not certain whether the ANC is the ANC that that we thought it was. And there's just so many questions politically about South Africa. And I think this film kind of helped a lot of people to really understand how we can navigate the space.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And so to kind of bring all of this full circle, I know it's your first feature film, and you've said that there were lots of challenges during the film. So as a young filmmaker who has, surmounted these challenges to create such a beautiful piece of work, what would be some advice you would give to other young Black filmmakers who want to do similar things like you, want to tell untold stories and inspire people to hope and to move towards transformation? What advice would you give?
I think it's very important that you are honest. I think honesty must come first as a storyteller. Find your truth. I think it's important that they find their truth. Because their truth is gonna guide them, towards telling their stories, because there's so many stories that we still need to hear, about, secluded communities, about secluded, genders, there's just so many stories, that we just need to hear, and I think people have to be, find their truth. And I think once finding their truth, they can then stick to their truth and walk on that path of telling their truth to the world. Yeah. And, making films is not, whether you have money or you don't have money, it's the same. It's a stressful process. Whether you have 10 million to make a film or you have 10,000 rand, I promise the stress is the same. It doesn't really matter how much money you have to make a film. You can run out of budget with 10 million, so money is not, money, if as a filmmaker, especially if you want to, make your first film, money shouldn't be an issue. You shouldn't wait for money, to get into the picture. I think it's always about, connecting yourself to the right people within your space, particularly, writing according to what, you can afford, even in terms of character building, build characters that, you can afford, because you can imagine a 60-year-old actor as an experienced actor, they're going to come expensive. But if maybe your lead character is an 18-year-old character, they're just coming into the acting space, maybe they might be a bit cheap. So it's just about understanding, how you can navigate the writing process, in order to just shed some of the fat within the budget of the film, so that you can then get to the first, motion picture, because it's always that, it's just about, finding those places where you can really, there's many films that have been made in one location, so just, as a young person, identify those spots, and because then you can be on your way to getting it. But if you're gonna wait for the money, we don't know. If the money is gonna come, we're not sure. And Sean, we live in a digital space. We've got 4K at the palm of our hands. So. We should be in a time where we are telling Black stories more than anything else, and Africa, there's no better time to be Black than now. There's never been a better time to be Black than now. This is the best time, to be Black, because the time for Blackness is now.
Yes, of course, there's an increase in awareness and consciousness of what it means to be black, and our history, and where we're going forward. In terms of going forward, Vusi, what do you have any work in the pipeline that we should be looking forward to?
No, definitely. Yeah, well, I might not be at the leisure of saying what I'm working on, currently. But yeah, we are in development, with some of the projects that we're working on, and there's a script that we're really pushing hard right now, and in terms of getting into those labs markets, so we're just in development processes and working, and people will they'll just have to wait and see.
Yes.
See what's happening. But
Well, we'll definitely be looking out for future films from Vusi Africa.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we will come to Trinidad, and
Oh yeah, definitely. You definitely need to come to Trinidad after all of this COVID drama.
Yeah.
On behalf of the Africa Film Festival, Trinidad and Tobago, and the Black Consciousness Festival, we want to thank you, Vusi, for spending time with us today. Over to you, Shay.
Yeah, no, I'm really honored to be invited, and thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you so much, Vusi, and we're happy to have both of you. Hopefully, when the world comes back to some semblance of what we consider to be normal, we can hopefully be able to have these conversations face to face, or vice versa, because we would love to come over to the continent, and Vusi would love to have you here. So, guys.
No,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna bring my next project to you guys. Should be fun. Hopefully, that side I can be able to, to fly there and witness the magic myself.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, man, nice. So, guys, thank you again very much to those of you who are listening. Thank you for joining us. We will be having more talks, films, and events until the 30th of this month, 30th of May. So please join us. Make a donation, and please enjoy the films. And thank you again for supporting us for our 7th edition of the Africa Film Festival. Gentlemen, thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and you all have a wonderful day, right?
You too.
Thank you.